Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go.
Fugue for tinhorns. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Friday, November 1st, 2024. Who can be in a bad mood on a Friday? Not me. Fugue for tinhorns, please settle this for me. Costas said that nobody will know what that was. Could you play that one more time, please, Coca? Everybody knows that. Guys and dolls, I got the horse right here. His name is Paul Revere. And what does that mean when you hear that music? You get so excited. Maybe I should play that every morning. I'm not saying I do or don't. I'm not saying it's from one of my favorite comedies, Let It Ride. I'm not saying that either. I do love Guys and Dolls too. What I am saying is when you hear it, you get excited. It's like the opposite of Barry Manilow, who I love, by the way. But I'm not getting reflective. I'm ready for the off season. It's up and running. Isn't that what you think of? Fugue for tinhorns, word of the day. We have a trade that happened yesterday, an early trade, like a right after the World Series announced trade in baseball, which is good, makes everyone excited. We'll talk about that. But I wanted to give you, now that the offseason is up and running, top 5 stories. Am I allowed as sort of, I've been thinking about this with Coca and Sarah. I think that I am allowed to give you an OLI and assume that many of you, not all of you, know what that is. For those of you who don't listen to the Dan Le Batard Show, and there are a decent percentage of you who listen to Just Nothing Personal, there's a percentage of you who listen to Just Dan Le Batard. And when I'm on there, you're like, who's that guy? Oh, he has his own show? Well, no, I do a show with Coca and Sarah. Coke is tired this morning. He had a rough birthday. You're not going to hear his voice today. His voice sounds like this. He's got a little crack voice. Not because he was partying so much. I think the tiredness of Friday and sort of the general malaise of post-birthday. Worst day of the calendar year. World Series ratings came out as sort of a end of 2024. Wrap it up. We told you all the press releases that would be sent because we told you that this was going to be a really highly rated World Series. It was going to be a return to the glory days of baseball when 40 to 50 million people were watching the World Series. Well, it wasn't that, but the average World Series viewership was about 15.8 million. Stop it. Stop it with your NFL. I understand that is a mediocre 1 o'clock window between two teams that are out of it. But forget that for a moment and recognize that Game 3 beat Monday Night Football and the overall World Series. Remember what we're comparing it to. World Series 15.8, NBA Finals 11.3. Crushed them. The only thing that the NBA does better than MLB, franchise valuation. But if that interests you, then you can use that as a barometer. But I don't know who would ever look to franchise valuation as a way to gauge how a league is doing. I mean, you'd have to be someone in sports business or something. So that was a very good way to end, even though we left some serious dollar fine, even though they left some serious beef on the table, which I think is a mixed metaphor. I think it's supposed to be meat, not beef. That's not mixed. It's just mislabeled. 15.8 is a good number. Number 5, large versus small payroll teams. The number 5 storyline is going to be the beginning of the positioning of the large and small payroll teams as they work their way through the reality of where we are in terms of disparity of revenue, disparity of payroll, the reality that teams are taking their revenue sharing dollars and competing against teams who are giving them revenue sharing dollars, which bothers large market teams, but not as much as large market teams giving revenue sharing to teams who don't spend their revenue sharing dollars on anything but themselves. We were accused of a lot of things over our careers. Never pocketing revenue sharing. That wasn't it. Nope. We were accused of bringing up the market for eighth inning relievers or for shortstops or for closers or for catchers with lots of letters in their name, but we were never accused of pocketing revenue sharing by anyone other than the union, who just did that because they felt they had to reserve their rights. But of course, it was never true. Now, are there teams doing it? Maybe there are. And when I say pocketing revenue sharing dollars, I don't necessarily mean don ma poche, like going to buy a yacht or a piece of art or a company, but you can use it to help your balance sheet. You can use extra cash flow, extra EBITDA to pay down debt. So there are some serious stakes in the ground by these sets of teams, and the commissioner has a job to do as he gets ready to bargain. And the job is get your owners in line, and it's never been more difficult in baseball. So what we have to watch for during the course of this offseason are teams like the Pirates, the Marlins, the Orioles, the Reds. See where they go, what they're doing, while looking at teams on the high end like, obviously, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers. Number 4, the CBA, the actual CBA. So you may not read a lot about this yet because they don't want any negative articles coming out. They don't want any fans to ever be worried. But there is a negotiating playbook that happens when you get toward the end of a collective bargaining agreement. And we are nearing the end of the current collective bargaining agreement. And the negotiating stances that are taken by both sides happen and manifest in several ways. 1, through grievances, where the players' union starts to assert certain rights and does it through grievances, which are official. Think of a grievance as putting a stake in the ground and saying, I don't agree that you do that. I don't know that I'm going to ask for it or fight for it till my dying day when we negotiate, but I just need you on notice that you're not supposed to be doing X, and we're calling you on it. We're grieving it. And I am not at all against unions having the ability to file grievances. I think it's absolutely within their right, as it is within management's right, to make sure that both sides follow what you've negotiated. It's very important when you sign a contract with someone to do your job. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Well, they didn't make me do it. Yeah, but it's in the contract. You better do it. The number 3 story. Where's Tampa going to play? Commissioner Rob Manfred said by Christmas, we got to find out where Tampa's going to play. Now, he's saying by Christmas, but in the baseball calendar, some weird stuff happens around Christmas. In the regular world, like Wall Street world, or in the world of your business, that's holiday period. It used to be holiday period was around Christmas week, maybe a couple days between Christmas and New Year's. Then it's, listen, I don't know if we're going to get this done. And, we're in December right now. We're right around Thanksgiving. Who can figure out what to do around Thanksgiving? So why don't we think about that after the holidays? And then you realize that they meant after Thanksgiving, but did they mean after Thanksgiving and before Christmas? All right, we'll get that done in that period of 3 days. And now what it's become is, you know what? Let's get to that at the beginning of next year. Are you doing that in your own business? You doing that in your own personal life? Yeah, we'll get to that. Starting next year. It's November. I can't be, I got too much to think about. So Christmas comes fast, and then all of a sudden it's January, and then before you know it, it's November, and then you're a year closer to your dash date. Not ideal. Tampa's got to figure out what to do, and please do not believe some of the writings that are coming out of Tampa, some of the PR. Let me give you the facts as I see them in this case. There is no mathematical equation that I can come up with that would allow for St. Petersburg or the Tampa Bay Rays and their ownership group to invest $1.50 in Tropicana Field. Any insurance proceeds that they may get for the fiberglass roof and all of the damage that happened inside the bowl due to the hurricane, it would be absolutely silly for them not to take that money and use it to help defray costs or help be part of the contribution for the public and private for the new ballpark in St. Pete. You would say to me, but David, if my car breaks down and I have a new car coming in 3 years, I've got to spend money to take care of my car because how am I going to get to work? So while I don't love putting money into an old car, I got to get it working again. I hear you. The difference is, why not take the bus or the subway? Or there's another car in the driveway. It's a jalopy, but it's a car nonetheless. Well, in that case, I'm probably not going to put all sorts of money into my Accord. That's the situation in Tampa. They can play in a spring training minor league facility in the Tampa area. Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be wet? Yeah, whatever. 3 years in a temporary spring training facility, the union's not going to say, well, we won't have any chance of getting the proper revenue. The union knows the ticket revenue of the Tampa Bay Rays at Tropicana Field. The drop-off from Tropicana Field to a different spring training facility puts the duh in de minimis. Well, what about playoffs? I already told you, come playoff time, there's going to be a situation that will be addressed if Tampa makes the playoffs. But Tampa has got to figure out where they're going to be, but they don't need to have that done by Christmas. It'd be great, but not necessary. Number 2, Juan Soto. He doesn't get number 1. Juan Soto gets number 2. Where Juan Soto will play. The reason why this matters, when analysts tell you during all these free agent shows, or you go and listen to the radio or listen to podcasts, and you hear about teams talking the domino effect. The domino effect is what front offices use in order to explain to fans why they've been inactive. They say, listen, the market is such that we don't want to make a first move. We don't want to be the first mover into this free agent market. We're waiting for this person to sign. That person will then create a domino effect. Deshaun Watson's my best example of that. He really created that domino effect with quarterbacks, didn't he? No. He created a ceiling, not a domino effect, 2 different things. Shohei Ohtani, remember last year? Oh, we're not sure. We don't want to really sign anyone yet because we're waiting for Shohei. We may get him. We got to make sure that we've got money allocated. And then if Shohei doesn't sign with us, we'll reallocate. Except most teams who say that don't. Juan Soto is one of those types of players, and I don't want to parrot Scott Boras, who will certainly be telling you, Scott Boras cannot, if you're waiting for Juan Soto to sign before the GM meetings or the winter meetings, please stop. I promise you, I guarantee you he will not sign before the winter meetings. Why? As a matter of fact, Coca, allow me to make that an official wait to see for today's show. Wait to see. Juan Soto, when we tell you something's going to happen, and then we'll revisit it. It's on our document at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Juan Soto will not sign before the winter meetings. Why? Because during the winter meetings and then the GM meetings, which are in November, the winter meetings, which are in December, Scott Boras, the agent for Juan Soto, always does his own press conference. He brings his own backdrop. He sets it up in the lobby because MLB does not allow him in the regular press conference room at the dais where they make announcements. No, not there, Scott. He puts it up in the lobby in a place. He tells the media where he's going to be, and he holds court like a jester. And he gets a ton of media members. Certain of his leak media members get to be in the front, and they get to ask the first question. Thank you for carrying my water for all of these years. You get the first question. Maybe you'll get aggregated. Well, if Juan Soto is already signed, Scott Boras will be sitting there saying, hey, you don't want to talk about Corbin? You need Juan Soto to be unsigned so you can have the biggest media group around you to talk about how Juan Soto's a generational player, how he'll come up with his examples of it'll have to do, of course, with the Juan Soto shake. You know, he does that shake when he's at the plate. When he looks out at the mound, Scott Boras will look into the camera and say, if this team wants to shake, then they're going to realize they have to have a Soto size on the Richter scale of love. Who knows? Whatever the crap he spews, no one pays attention to it, but he likes the attention. So Juan Soto is not going to sign. So if you are a team that is holding out money on the side, like the Yankees or the Mets, oh, we can't do anything. We got to wait. Got to see if we're going to be given $44 to $45 million to Juan Soto. I'm not getting pitching. I'm not going to do anything. I'll do some margin stuff. I'll get the minor league free agents going. We'll get some split contract guys. We'll sign a couple back of the rotation pieces, but we're not fishing at the top of the market, even though we're the top of the food chain when it comes to payroll and revenue. We're not going to fish at the top of the market because we're waiting for Soto. So the timing of him, in theory, and his signing would have a domino effect. Not for me. If you know that you're not getting Juan Soto, and trust me, there's 26 teams who know, everybody but Philly, LA, New York, and New York. There are 28 teams, everybody but New York and New York, who think, I'll probably be used as a stalking horse here, but I don't think that I'll be able to make the top bid here. The incremental benefit for Soto going to LA or Philadelphia is way smaller than the detriment of Soto leaving the Yankees from Steinbrenner's point of view, or the benefit of Soto joining the Mets from Cohen's point of view. So word to the wise for all of you GMs doing work out there and team presidents, start your work now and don't wait, and don't give us that domino talk. And the number one off-season issue, Coca, that was for you. That was it. You were supposed to play it right there. We did a number one. Yeah. The number one off-season issue is an issue you're tired of hearing about, but it is number one, I promise you. The regional sports networks, for an unprecedented, are we 3 years into their Chapter 11? All of these teams still don't know what their TV revenue is going to be. Now, of course, you may get a little press release, little conversation where the commissioner's office and teams talk about how great the reach is for this over the air, and how how MLB is producing games, and how everything's totally fine. But remember, the revenue that teams counted on through their deals with what is now FD Sports Network, it's a competitor of DraftKings, so the formerly known as Bally's. You may know it at that. Although it's funny, I was just thinking about this, Coca. If Pepsi were a sponsor and there was a game done and it was at Coke Field, or if we were sponsored by United, would I say, and now at the D Center, because I didn't want to say Delta, would I do that? I'd have to really think about that. I'm going to really speak to people this weekend and see how they want me to refer to the FDN. But what we don't know is whether the judge is going to accept what Diamond wants to do with baseball, whether baseball is going to accept what Diamond wants to do with baseball, whether the teams are going to be able to renegotiate their current deals where they had counted on certain streams of revenue which have disappeared, how scared the owners are about the reality. And the reality is that when you don't have a guaranteed future stream of broadcast revenue, you are going to be less aggressive in the middle to bottom range of free agency and in payroll. You're just going to be. Because when you submit your budget to baseball, and all 30 teams have to do this, little known fact there, Normie, we submit a budget to baseball. That's why you can't let them tell you, oh, I had no idea what their payroll was going to be. Because not only do we submit a budget to baseball, but guess what else? Baseball has an entire department where they look at the budget, they look at the payroll of the team, they look at the contractual obligations of the team, and they say, it looks to me here that if Jeter buys the Marlins, they're going to have to trade Stanton. and Yelich and Ozuna and JT. They've got the info. So when budgets are given to baseball, they're like, I don't know where these free agents are going to go except to these two teams, and these two teams can't sign all these free agents. So how this RSN situation unfolds is important everywhere except New York, and it's except strike that 4869. The RSN situation and how it unfolds is important for everywhere except LA, because LA's deal is cast in stone and guaranteed by Comcast, and there's no bankruptcies, there's no cash flow issues, there's no problems at all. But it's not just the Diamond RSNs, because yes, Nesson, Masson, SNY, all of those networks have a problem. Chicago Sports Network, all of them have a problem. A carriage right problem, a carriage value problem. How much companies are paying for the rights to have these networks problem, which then leads downflow revenue problem to the people who give the content to the networks, who then sell it to the companies to be distributed. I think you know where I'm going. When there's a problem anywhere along the food chain, it causes a problem for everybody's dinner. When you are going through a deal, let's talk about a business deal. When you buy a house, you know what you're doing, I think. When you need to go get a mortgage, you got to show the bank what? You got to show them what your job is. You got to show them what your income is, your last W-2, your last taxes that you filed. And then the bank makes a decision that what you owe them on a monthly basis, will you be able to pay it? So let's say if you're in New York City, people have a general rule that you want your rent to be anywhere under 50% of your income, which is very high, because if you're out of New York, you'd rather be at 30%, by the way, at most. But in New York City, Brooklyn, that area, 50% is the general rule, which is why people have such problems living in the city. When you want to go buy a car and get it financed, when you own a business and you want the business to borrow money, what do? Go to a bank, you show them your business. Here's how much my business spends. Here's the revenue of my business. Here's what's left over. Here's what I owe you. Lend me the money. Well, it looks like you have more expenses than revenue. Your business loses money. How exactly are you going to pay me my money back? I love that you asked that, because look over here to my left. I've got other businesses. I've got other assets, and I'd be happy to pledge those assets as collateral in case I can't make money at this asset, which I'm using to try to borrow money. All right, let's look and see what those other assets are. Well, I got a piece of art. You got a piece of art. You have other things that you are saying that are worth money. If you are a baseball team trying to borrow money to build a stadium, you've got to show the bank that you've got other sources of money, because your baseball team doesn't make enough money to in any way support a loan to build a stadium in Vegas. The Oakland A's, they're not the Oakland A's, the A's, 4869, the Athletics are trying to get money to build the stadium. And what you try to do is show that the new stadium is going to be so successful that all of the money it's going to throw off will be enough to pay you back your money. The problem is that banks go through your financials and say, you're assuming 5,000 tourists a game. You're assuming that you're going to draw 25 to 30,000 people for every game of 81 games at an average ticket price of $60. Are you kidding? And they take a pen and they scratch 50% off that. Now let's see where your revenue is. So the Athletics have gone to different banks and tried to figure out who will lend us money based on the smallest haircut you'll give to the unrealistic revenue assumptions that we made about what it would be to have a new baseball team in Las Vegas. Yesterday, the A's laid out their financial plan for their $1.5 billion Vegas ballpark. And I smiled immediately, because it's like we've associated David Philip Samson. You say David Phillip, I say Samson. They go together. They're doing that in Vegas. 1.5 billion ballpark. I can promise you that my name is David Phillip Samson. There is no chance, toilet pants, that the Athletics can promise you that it's a $1.5 billion price tag. Why? They haven't gotten a guaranteed maximum price for the ballpark. They haven't gotten a true budget for the ballpark. They don't have the first idea. By the way, they don't truly understand what they're responsible for. Part of the demolishing, part of the fixing up the site to get it ready to build, any sort of environmental impact study. God knows what was under the trop. And I don't just mean people. That was a good one that I think that may have. Coca, did you like that one? Get it? The trop, Bugsy, the Flamingo, Mafia, Capone, under, environmental impact. Nope. Coca is GAF right now. Grumpy as fuck. So the $1.5 billion ballpark, which of course is not $1.5 billion, you go to the bank and you say, so can I borrow money? And then the bank says, here's what we're going to do. Because you have to show everybody, the Athletics do, that they've got the money. They have to show Bally's. They have to show the public in Vegas, the media. So they go and get these letters. Letters are awesome. Do you know that when you get something called the commitment letter, you may know about that in sports where a player commits, and now the commitment letter might as well be toilet paper, but it doesn't matter. A commitment letter, it's like one of those commitment rings when you're in high school. Hey, can I have your varsity letter off your jacket? Will you go to prom with me? I'm committed to you. Oh, what's going on over there? What are you doing Saturday night? Oh, I'm going to wait. Let me see what's going on. I'll let you know. All right, I'm good. Let's go out. Oh, I got a better offer. You know what I'm talking about. Commitment letters with banks are funny. Fully negotiated. It's like you negotiate a contract, and what you're negotiating with the bank's lawyers and the bankers is that you want something in writing that you can take to satisfy an obligation to do something else. It's like a letter of reference when you're trying to get a job. What the Athletics did is they got a bunch of commitment letters and they showed it to the public and said, look, we're golden, man. The Fisher family, they got a letter, and this was pretty good. The Fisher family themselves sent a letter that we're prepared to commit an equity contribution of $1 billion toward the project. They sent it to themselves. That's amazing. I loved anything you do with yourself is awesome. Dear John, I'm committed to giving you money for your ballpark. Love, John. It's awesome. I love that. I really do. Of course, what John Fisher will say is, no, it's from my family. It's not the same thing. Sorry. Dear Jane, I'm committed to giving you money. Love, John. So that was a funny letter. They did give a second letter, which was good. They have from U.S. Bank and Goldman Sachs, bless you, Goldman Sachs, but you know what you do because I've dealt with you in sports for 18 decades, years, 2 decades. Goldman Sachs, you know what you're good at. You're good at being the BOLR, Bank of Last Resort. What that means is that they are going to charge you 2 arms, 1 leg, and a couple of fingernails, but they'll give you a letter. Yes, they will. So U.S. Bank and Goldman Sachs, they gave a letter to the Athletics that said, we're willing to commit to $300 million, a construction loan commitment. Do you know what a construction loan is? A construction loan commitment is that we'll give you money to construct the ballpark, but then we expect to get paid out of the construction fund. Or if we're going to give money to the ballpark that's going to be used to build the ballpark, then we'll give you a 10-year loan. And in 10 years, we'll either renegotiate it, the terms, or we'll call it and you'll have to raise money another way. So it's the way teams just sort of kick the can. It's the way you do with your mortgage. If you have a 5-year arm, an adjustable rate mortgage, you're like, hey, I'll worry about it 5 years from now. If rates are up too high, then that's a risk I'm willing to take. Construction loan commitment. Boy, I would not put rebar in the ground with that, but it's all right. We've got that. That's a good one. But then we found out another thing that happened. This was good. U.S. Bank did a due diligence letter. When banks do due diligence letters, and I'm not trying to yuck on any bank's yum, although the banks still don't like me because we sold and bought teams without using them, but it's all good. But this one's a good one. This is, we've reviewed some of the financial holdings of the Fisher family. That's good because we all like doing our own balance sheets because we never pretend we have what we don't have or that the value of what we have is greater than what it is. Don't worry, no one does that. I mean, you cannot do that and run for president. That'd be absurd. But we've reviewed some of the financial holdings of the Fisher family, and that review included SEC filings. That's public. That's a lot of due diligence. What'd you do, a Google search? And I'm not impugning U.S. Bank, but I'm merely trying to tell the people of Vegas, come on. This is what we're saying. Everything is on schedule. We also got independent third-party appraisals and financial statements, so we know what the underlying assets are of the Fisher family. Fantastic. That and a $2.25 may or may not still get you on a city bus. Meanwhile, the Athletics are going to play in Sacramento. People are trying to figure out whether it's going to be hot and wet there. Yes, it's going to be hot. I don't know if it'll rain, but it probably will. But the Athletics will play in Sacramento. They will play day games because at the end of the day, the players are fine with being hot. They'll drink water. They'll have fans and air conditioners and whatever they'll have, but they want the things that they negotiated for in the CBA. They want the afternoon games for travel, for days off, etc. So the Athletics, to me, with all of these interesting things that they did and announced yesterday, I'm not sure that it adds up to much other than it's a step. It doesn't mean they're a step closer to getting the ballpark underway. You need a real budget. Baseball needs to see it. They need to approve it. You need design, specific construction documents so that it can be built at a price that everyone agrees to, including the banks. Don't worry. It'll all work out in the end. And if it's not working out, it's not the end. All right. Let's go to break. We didn't talk about the trade. Did I lose that? I lost my place. I guess we're doing that after the break. All right, after the break, we're going to talk about that baseball trade that happened. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a Friday edition of Nothing Personal. We are firing on all cylinders. Don't ever let people give you the excuse, it's Friday. Not going to get anything done on Friday. It's 20% of the week, for crying out loud. I watched the second season of The Old Man with Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow. Have you watched this series, Coca? The Old Man, Jeff Bridges, John Lithgow. He plays this old man, but he's the most unbelievable killer, but not a bad guy. He's sort of a CIA operative who may or may not have done some bad things, who may or may not have a daughter. The daughter may or may not have a different father, who may or may not have interests that are against the United States, which may or may not cause some weird family Thanksgiving dynamics, a holiday which may or may not be celebrated where the entire second season takes place. Any show that brings Amy Brenneman in as a character is a show that I want to watch. So good. To be fair, I like the first season better. But what I did enjoy about the second season is they developed a very deep storyline about the daughter of the old man. Or is she the daughter of both old men? Well, you say that, you'd think that the two old men are together, which they're not. Just do me a favor, watch The Old Man. It's FX, Hulu, worth it. Jeff Bridges, what a career. You know he's the star of my number one movie on davidsamsonpodcast.com, Fearless. You know Fisher King, The Big Lebowski. Just watch him. Nothing personal pick of the day. The Texans plus 105 over the Jets was a loser. We are 150 and 160. Listen, if Garrett Wilson is going to catch a touchdown with one hand and Aaron Rodgers is going to wake up and get 14 points scored in the fourth quarter, and if CJ Stroud is going to be running for his life the entire game because Coca, Sarah, and I are the offensive linemen, I think the Texans are going to have a hard time winning another game. I don't think the Jets could have looked worse in the first half. I don't think the game could have been worse. If you didn't watch it, there's only one play I want you to focus on at all. That's it. I'm going to make one more public plea to players. One more. When you're scoring a touchdown because you either returned a punt, you returned an interception, you have a 19-yard run, or you catch a post pattern or a fly pattern and you score and you're alone. And you're looking back and you're doing the Deion Sanders high step. Can you please make sure that the ball's in the end zone? For the love of God. There's a rookie, Corley. Did you see what he did? He dropped the ball after a 19-yard touchdown run in a scoreless game at the 1-yard line. And to make matters worse, the ball went all the way through the end zone, through the back of the end zone, and football has a rule, a very simple rule. If the ball goes through the end zone because you dropped it at the 1-yard line, you don't get any points. And worse yet, you lose the ball. It's a touchback. Texans ball. They show Corley on the sideline. He's getting tapped on the shoulder pads and the head by the players. We love you, man. I don't really love positive reinforcement of idiotic behavior. Hey, good job putting your face in the oven. That was great. Way to go. Hey, great job crossing the highway on foot. You made it, Frogger man. I don't want to support that. If I'm a coach or a player and a teammate of this rookie, I'm saying, listen here, Jacko, you're an idiot. And then I'd meet my team if I am the interim coach who finally got a win, because now, of course, the Jets season is saved. On to the Super Bowl. Woody Johnson did it. Put together the best team ever. I wonder if Jeff Ulbrich goes back to the locker room after that game and says, we did it, boys. If I'm him, I'm going over to Corley and I'm saying, listen, I would go full. Oh, David, what's the name of the manager from Major League, the great baseball movie? Oh, I think his last name was Gammon, but I think that was the actor's name. I can't remember the name of the character, but when Wesley Snipes does something, he celebrates too soon or does something, he congratulates him and says, but if you ever do that again, I'll kill you. I think that's what Ulbrich should say to him. Lou Brown, you nailed it, Coca. You're back. I think he's 13 minutes away from Loverboy time. Everybody is working for the weekend, so he's now back in my ear and full of energy and vinegar. God, the Jets stink. It's just that the Texans are worse. Thank God I have no smell. Would have watched that game with a gagging. Tonight, we've got the Denver Nuggets, who everybody is ruled out. They're done. It's so awesome. I love the early season sample size and how everyone extrapolates that over a full year. It's like at the start of the baseball season when the guy hits 2 home runs opening day. On pace for 324 home runs. All right. Can I get a market there, DraftKings? Can I go under that? The Denver Nuggets have started off not great. I admit it. I would say that for anyone to say that they are not one of the 2 best teams in the Western Conference, that you're making a mistake. But for some reason, the line, which are all subject to change, would say that the T-Wolves and Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert are better than the Nuggets by a lot. The Nuggets are plus 154 in the money line. We're taking them. I love that Jokic, while it's hard to get anyone to care about the regular season in the NBA, it's hard to get the players to care about anything in the NBA with the contracts they have, that's for sure. But that said, so much talk now about how ugly it is, the NBA product. We've been talking about that for 5 years on Nothing Personal. Sunday, I'm watching the Cowboys and Falcons game. The Cowboys are +3 versus the Falcons. I have a plan here for this game. Here's my plan. Jerry Jones went up to Jerry Jones and said, we're not losing to the Falcons. Jerry Jones went to Jerry Jones, the GM, and said, what a disgrace that we are underdogs against the Falcons. Then Jerry Jones, the GM, went to Dak Prescott, the player, and said, dude, do me a solid and please find a way to be good so I can go to my owner and say, look, we're fine. And I can go to my coach and say, look, you're fine. Cowboys +3 versus the Falcons. Those are the two weekend, nothing personal picks of the day. Yesterday, Bob Costas let it be known that he is retiring as a play-by-play caller in baseball. I wanted to take a few minutes now. Do not, please, do me the honor of not fast forwarding this. I'll tell you why. This is not a story about today. It's a story about tomorrow and yesterday. Bob Costas is the voice of so many of our stories. Bob Costas is on the Mount Rushmore of baseball play-by-play callers, second only to Vin Scully in the pantheon of brilliance of baseball play-by-play callers. Bob Costas is the most dynamic broadcaster play-by-play caller I've seen in almost 5.5 decades. Bob Costas can go from hosting a studio show for the NBA to the Olympics to doing play-by-play in any sport with a preparation, with a intonation, and with an explanation that mixes history, that tells you stories about today, and enables you to picture tomorrow in a way that no one ever has. And if you are amongst the very few who thought that Bob Costas doing the Yankees series, and is he a friend of mine? Yes. Is he a friend of Nothing Personal? Go watch the sit-downs that he's done. Yes. Am I doing a segment on Bob Costas and writing him, speaking a love letter to him because of that? No. It is your honor to have heard Bob Costas. Whether you think that he did or did not do his best during the Yankee first round on TBS, that doesn't matter. It's as though you say that your best player is graded by his final interception, Brett Favre, therefore his whole career stunk. I'm not talking about what he did off the field, either during or after his career. It's like looking back on Michael Jordan and saying, I think he missed his last shot, and he was pretty terrible for the Wizards. Therefore, he's not the greatest of all time, and it takes away what he did. It's absurd. You wouldn't do it with athletes. Why would you do it with a broadcaster? As though young broadcasters don't make mistakes or don't see line drives that are hits or not hits or miss something. It is normal. But I don't want to focus on the last series that the Yankees had in TBS. I want to focus on the fact that it's another example of time passing. Bob Costas retiring, what he's saying to you is that if in his mind he can't deliver his best fastball in the exact location that he wants to deliver it at all times, he's willing to walk away. Bob Costas is telling you that I'm 72. You know what? I'm retiring. If anyone has earned the right to retire on his terms from using a microphone and a camera his whole life, it's Bob Costas. When we go back in time, we always use the voices of a period to help set a stage, to help inform us what we should be thinking about the stakes are of a particular moment or a particular game. And it requires somebody to meet the moment. No one has done better at meeting the moment than Bob Costas. Congratulations. I want you to come on Nothing Personal again. I think that you will. And I would just say that I thank you. And it's not just me, Bob. There are tens of millions of people who think about your voice and have their voice in your head every time they see a sporting event. You know what I love about baseball trades? I love when we get to say that's a baseball trade. You don't get to say that too often because there aren't many baseball trades. The majority of trades happen because of money. The Atlanta Braves made a trade yesterday that is going to go down as a huge trade for this offseason. The Braves found a way to find an owner who is desperate beyond comprehension. The Atlanta Braves found a way to trade Jorge Soler, who the San Francisco Giants had signed to a 3-year, $42 million deal. Terrible signing. He then gets traded to the Braves. The Braves are like, yeah, listen, let's see if a reunion works. Yeah, that always works. I tried that so many times. Hey, we used to have that player. Let's bring him back. It's going to be great. It'll be just like it was when he was really good when he was younger. While Soler is only 32 years old, the reality is that he's not a performing player anymore. But you get to look at his numbers and you get to say, oh, he's got some power. I think there's an opportunity here. Is there a team that's willing to take him on? Let's check. Alex Anthopoulos, a brilliant GM, calls up the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles and says, hey, you guys lost Ohtani. You guys have the longest streak without the playoffs. You guys need offense. You guys got to do something to protect Trout. And I don't mean having him live in a bubble because that's about what it takes to protect Trout these days because the guy gets injured when he sort of walks out the door in the morning. We've got Soler, and it's only $16 million for 2 years. And all we want back is Griffin Canning. Wait, you're willing to trade us Jorge Soler for Griffin Canning? Well, Griffin Canning, he's a pitcher. Griffin Canning is the perfect pitcher for the Braves. He is a bottom of the rotation schlepper. And I don't mean personally. I'm talking about as a pitcher. He'll give you a bunch of innings and he'll give up 5 runs a game. And if you've got the offense to score 6 runs a game, he's going to be exactly what you need. He's a depth piece and a cheap one at that. He's only supposed to make $5.5 million next year in arbitration, his final season of arbitration. And the Braves can put him in their rotation if they happen to lose Fried and lose Martin, who the odds are they'll lose one of them. And they've got depth for injuries because injuries happen all the time, especially to the Braves. Although we saw what happens, the huge rotation injuries the Dodgers had. Every team wants rotation depth. The Braves got rotation depth in Canning. You're not looking for maximum ace-like pitching. You're just looking for innings. Who doesn't want an innings eater? Innings eaters get rich because very few people can do it. And Griffin Canning can do it. So the Braves get that. And they got to take Soler off their payroll. Oh, my God. It forced the GM of the Angels to say a comment. It's somebody that can change a game in one swing of the bat. You're damn right when he strikes out. That's what the Angels GM was saying about Soler. Can go play the outfield if you need him. You better not need him. He's a DH. Great human being. A-plus clubhouse guy. I always like when we say that. Don't get me wrong. I like A-plus clubhouse guys, but we say A-plus clubhouse guys when we know, we're not sure about performance, but, ooh, is he good in the clubhouse? So good. And then he said, this is move number 1. We expect there to be more moves. I expect to improve this club in a lot of different areas. Looks like the Angels are going to spend money again, which Arte Moreno does because he's an octogenarian who very badly wants a ring, doesn't have a ring, needs a ring, and lost Ohtani and has Trout signed, who's not even one of the top 10 players in the league anymore because he doesn't play. One of the great things that you're supposed to do when you're building a team is try to collect as much bulk of mediocrity as possible and then hope that somebody just catches lightning in the bottle. Not. What a great trade for the Braves. When Alex Anthopoulos is willing to do a trade with you before November 1st, here's a word of advice to the rest of baseball. Don't make the trade. It's sort of like when the Tampa Bay Rays waive somebody and then your GM comes up to you and says, hey, I want this guy. Hi, I want to make my team just like the Rays. All right, I'll take all their cast-offs. That's, I think, how the Marlins are doing it. Guess what? If the Rays don't want him, news alert, they stink. It's an interesting way to think about how to do business within baseball amongst GMs because certain teams are really good at what they do. The Braves are one of them. We'll look back on this trade. You'll totally have forgotten about it. But when spring training starts and you see Soler as an Angel and then you see Canning as a Brave, you'll be like, oh, that one. That was a really good one. And the best people in any business are the people who work Monday to Friday. They work Saturday, Sunday, past 8 o'clock p.m. They do emails at midnight. It doesn't matter. Why? It's just business. Have a great weekend. We'll be back Monday. This is nothing personal.